Hello, folks. JWC Livestream. JWC Livestream Story Autopsy with Ricky and Tom. Special guest, David Anderson. Um, I'm Ricky. Tom, are you there?
I'm here. How's
Hello,
everybody?
sir. Oh, not too bad, given the mayhem and the chaos in the world today. Not too bad. Creativity, the transcendent force of creativity is holding things together. Um, David, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Thank you.
This is David Anderson, the poet, and what a poet he is. We have another JWC show, another live stream on Mondays called Sublimated Poesy. David and I do that show, but David's been tinkering with some short stories lately, so figure we have him. I mean, I'm going to let him unpack that, of course, but figure we give him an opportunity to do some reading of prose, expand his horizons, and I'm sure he's got something cool for us today. And as far as I'm concerned, I was talking about creativity, and there's lots of great stuff going on with that. Working on my sci-fi novel, Chiron 6. I'm like 22,000 words into that, which is good, about a third of the way done. I'm working on a book with David called Athenium, and we're decent. What are we in that? Like 8 or 10,000 words now, something like that.
Well, with the poem that I have in the appendices, it's more like close to 20,000.
That's excellent.
The poem is 50 pages already, and it's half written, so it's
Yeah.
going to be very large, and it will be easy to get lost into for a reader.
Yes, folks. And haven't been hitting posy, but I've just been so busy. On our Tuesday meeting, I did throw down 600 words of that project we're doing for JWC. Anybody who wants to come and really go look into some cool outlining processes should show up for our Tuesday meeting on Zoom. Uh, Tom will tell you it's been a real hoot putting that
Oh yeah.
together. David, how have you been creatively, sir? Uh, how's stuff going with that? And
I would like to take this opportunity to actually thank our host and JWC because I was very trepidatious about writing fiction, and they've been very accommodating. And I had a very fantastic critique last night with our host, and he gave me some ideas and some notes on my story that I'm going to read today, and it made it much better, more readable and interesting. So I really encourage anyone listening to this live stream to go over to the website and try to join or participate in some way. It's worth your time, and we all have to be very wise about how we invest our time as writers. But this is definitely the right choice.
Mm.
yeah, thank you. So that's joeswriters.club, folks. Join our forums. I don't know if your writing will be better, but it'll be different. And that's sometimes different is all you need.
Oh
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Tom, how about you, man? How's your creativity going? What are you working on?
Very good. Did another 1,000 words this morning of the bride.
Ooh.
Um, yeah. I did another. Working on another. Started a new chapter of the Florida novel. It's starting to come to a head where I think I could see where the ending is going to be coming up,
Oh,
and
it's great.
I just had the hero's house get trashed in the middle of the night by the antagonist, let's call it that. And so right now he's talking to the insurance agent and a lawyer, and they think it was just he told him, "Oh, it was just a gang of drunken kids." But the reader knows that it's an octopus the size of a Mack truck um, that almost got them.
Yeah, that would be a heck of a way to go. Let me tell you, getting ripped to pieces and then gobbled up by that beak or whatever's
right.
down there.
Ooh. And then I was inspired. I know a number of board game designers, and I'm one myself. And I woke up with an idea. He goes, "What if I could turn my Emily book into a board game called Save Emily Breck, where you have 7 unique challenges for each one of her lives, and you have 7 Emily cards to use to try to see if you can solve these challenges before all 7 of your lives get snuffed out. It might be fun. Right now,
I know a few gamers too, man. Some game developers that have had some various levels of success. I went to a con a couple years ago. Shoot for the stars. Get a prototype going.
Yeah,
you never know.
Right. I worked on a prototype of one adventure of where the object is to round up cryptids, and it might be a lot of fun just to do that. Ride around your car around whatever city that I won't say they're in, and and I came up with 8 cryptids. You have to capture 4 or 5 of them for you to beat the challenge. I just want to make it lots of fun. So,
well, I'm sure it'll be nifty. We'll ask for updates as time goes on.
Yeah, right.
So all very creative. Everyone's working on projects, reaching for more and more in print.
Right.
And writing games and developing games can be lots of fun too. Or at least that's been my experience. So that's very, very cool stuff. So we're gonna move on to our reads. David, I'm to understand that you're on the show to read something today. What is that?
It's called Smile, and it's about a young woman who seemingly becomes aware of the deception of how much can be hid behind a smile when a person is communicating with you, and how it's not always something that is favorable or that can assure you. So the whole idea was to make people aware of how a smile is merely a mask or something much more sinister and complicated going on in the mind of the person who's smiling. And I find that to be very true. And it's also slightly based on a personal experience that happened to me involving an urn at a church rumble sale. So that was the motivation for the story.
Well, let's hear it. Lay it on us.
Yeah. Screen share. Okay. I don't read very often, so I'll try and do my best.
Yeah, no judgment here, man. Just
nope.
have as much fun as you can. Nobody's picking on you.
Okay.
Relax. Read like you're telling this to your mom or your sister or a really good friend at the lunch table, because
that's a good tip. Thank you.
Yeah.
Smile. Charlotte decided to walk to her job at the cafe. It was an unseasonably warm March day. The light was a straw color and the air sweet. It had changed over from a wet snow and rain the night before, but now it was bright and promising looking. Charlotte smiled. It was a smile that she was unconscious of, and it faded quickly when the ambulance swept past, piercing her ears and her thought. She got past Broadway on Berwyn and crossed over into Andersonville. A velvety hush enveloped her. The traffic gave up to birds and the sound of the occasional car on the street. The houses were $1 million homes in this neighborhood, and their emerald green lawns and hedges showed them off smartly. As she passed one mansion, she saw a father and his daughter having breakfast on their back lawn. The daughter looked to be about 6 or 7. She poked at her food. You have to eat something, okay? He said to the child. He looked up at Charlotte as she passed on the walk. He smiled. Charlotte waved. That's not the same lady that comes to see you, Daddy, when Mommy is at work, said the girl as she eyed Charlotte curiously. The man looked away embarrassed. He had been smiling in a generous way, and now it was more like he was naked and embarrassed. Charlotte would have laughed if she had known these people. It seemed like men always have secrets, secrets that hurt the people they love. She hurried on as she walked. She hurried up as she walked on. Crossing North Lakewood Street, she saw that the Baptist church had laid out enormous tables for a rummage sale. She had time to look at the books for a couple of minutes. She walked over and started reading their covers. Most of them were old and worn copies of church volumes, liturgy, and a copy of the Lives of the Saints, and Dan Brown and Stephen King and Anne Rice, too. A late middle-aged man strode up and smiled. He looked like an uncle of someone, she thought. He had a nice face and a handsome smile. Not much left today, the last day. We go to noon. Oh, she said, pulling back some hair that fell into her eyes. Charlotte turned to face the other side of the walk, where another bank of tables held cardboard boxes of old lamps and a stereo that looked like it might not work. At the next table were stacks of dishware and rows of glasses gleaming in the sunlight. There was flatware too, but she didn't like the idea of buying these old things. It was then that she noticed all their defects, the marks, scratches, dings, dents, and dull sheen on them, caused most certainly from their being handled or carelessly dropped. It was how the high sun beat down on them and made them oppressively undesirable, such as a casserole dish she might buy, for the drop of pigeon shit was splattered on its cover. Her nose crinkled up in her face, and beads of sweat formed on her skin, and all of her fascination evaporated in this honesty of daylight. Then she saw it. It was made of a translucent marble and looked very heavy. It was clearly an urn, which is a container for human remains. It was incredibly ornate, too, with cherubs and grape leaves and vines on one side, and in the center of the other side of the urn was a hand-painted scene of a rock-cut tomb, or so she thought. It was one of the old type. It looked more like a cave, and there was a large, massive circular stone that was rolled away, revealing that it was not occupied. At first, it gave her a chill, and then she smiled. She liked it for some reason. If she bought it, though, she would have to carry it to work. That wouldn't work. The cafe where she worked would not like her bringing in something that was used in funerals, and the city could fine her employer for having it in a place where food and drinks were served. She would get fired. No, it must be old, Charlotte thought. She reached out to grasp its lid. Sorry, but I'd rather you pay for it first. It's an heirloom, very pricey, delicate. You understand. It has been passed down to me from my family. Well, I mean, I bought it from an aunt who needed money. It was then that Charlotte noticed that the man's smile had shifted, and it did not match his eyes, which were stern and protective. Charlotte stepped back as if she had trespassed on something sacred. How much? $500. Charlotte winced. I don't know. Maybe. Can I pick it up later? You have to by noon. I'm driving up to Rockford this afternoon. Family business. You really should buy this. It's a rare opportunity. Charlotte looked at the man and felt vaguely uncomfortable. He was leaning in as someone passed behind him, and he was nudged forward when he smiled. His teeth looked more yellowed and discolored, and one was clearly a cap. Charlotte backed up. No, I don't get off until 7 tonight. No, I'm sorry. It's a one-time offer. Now or never. Sorry. It's okay. Perhaps it's meant for me. Sorry? Oh, nothing, the man smiled. Another time, another life. Charlotte smiled, and she hurried on to work. She had decided to put it out of her mind. A week passed, and April began chilly. Each day she remembered the urn and the man, and it seemed more suspicious to her, and the way he smiled bothered her. And it was then that she started taking note of how everyone smiled. Some were true, but most seemed like a Halloween mask, and it made her especially uncomfortable when someone was looking at her for too long and still smiled. Smiles everywhere. There were smiles, but none of them were happy smiles. Instead, they were, I'm afraid of him smiles, or they were, please shut up smiles, or they were, I'm going to kill myself next Thursday smile. Or worst of all, they were empty smiles, smiles which were painted on their faces, smiles. It rained every day. Getting out of bed each day was a chore for Charlotte. The air was bitter on her skin, and she wrapped a silk scarf around her head, and she wore gloves and a heavy jacket. Everything was saturated in the smell of wet concrete and clean iron scent, or in the alleys the stench of where someone who had urinated. Everything was gray in cheerlessness. Work was constant. Tips were good. Everything had a pleasant uniformity to it, and that predictability that comforted her. It was almost like the man at the rummage sale had never spoken to her. And then she got distracted by other things. She had met a young man at a dinner party. His name was Keith. He was a graduate student at the University of Chicago, where he was seeking an MBA. She liked him so far, but sometimes he seemed a little mean, not to her, but to strangers. So, in every possible way, life was as it should be for Charlotte. She mentioned him to Kayla at work. Is he being an asshole? Just a little rude, I guess. Sometimes he has this look in his eyes. Disturbs me a bit. I don't know. Maybe I'm imagining it. It's just strange. Strange? Kayla asked. It's like it's some glitch in his face, and I suddenly think he's a loser. It's like that stupid car of his. All through dinner, he talked about himself, and he never really asked me about my job or anything. But I guess I'm just being too impatient. No, you're not. If he is mean to at all to anyone, you leave him. You break it off. You mean now? Hell yes. I don't know. Sometimes he can be sweet. Charlotte? Charlotte turned, and their shift supervisor, Spencer, had come behind the counter with a tray filled with cups and dirty plates. Spencer dropped the tray on the counter, and its loud clatter startled Charlotte. She was thinking of the man from the rummage sale. Take these. Charlotte groaned. She had been off register the whole morning and doing cleaning and pouring shots of espresso. Her clothes were perfumed by sweat and coffee. She felt tired and irritable. But either that or you finish the dining room. Fine. Charlotte removed her apron and walked out among the tables. It was a slow afternoon. The entire cafe was in chaos. Earlier, it had started pouring down rain, and people ran in to get out of it and stuck bought and Stuck bought coffee and pastries. There were leaves dragged in along with mud on the red tiles. They smelled of decaying matter. Before she started on clearing the dining room, she popped into the women's restroom and checked herself in a mirror. Her hair was somewhat disheveled. Taking a brush out of her purse, she removed the band which held it up in place, and she vigorously brushed her hair and then set it back out of her face. Then she splashed her face with cold water from the sink. Turning to pull a paper towel from its dispenser, she noticed someone had written in Sharpie on the wall, "I hate it when people look at me and smile." Suddenly, Spencer was knocking on the door. "Are you going to do what I asked? Coming. Now? Are you going to do your job now?" I said, "I'm coming, Spencer. Now fuck off, or I'm telling Jennifer that you're harassing me in the bathroom." It went quiet then. She finished her checking her face. She was shocked to see herself smiling like someone had made a joke about him. Her face was slightly contorted and menacing. She covered her mouth with her right hand and then returned to the dining room. As she was cleaning a table of newspapers spread out, there was yesterday's Tribune open to the obituaries. There he was, the man a week ago, the church rummage sale, but he looked younger. Charlotte sat down. It read, "On Thursday, last March 22nd, 2022, Wilfred Oscar Borman III passed away and is in heaven with his wife, Catherine Borman. He is survived by his 4 children, Anne, Christopher, Gerald, and Elizabeth. Memorial services were held yesterday, 2 p.m., Graceland Cemetery." A chill ran up Charlotte's spine then. A photo from the service showed guests and family at the cemetery, where in front of them was the urn. She had looked at it only a week ago. When she peered closely, she noticed that it had slightly changed. It was the painting of the rock-cut tomb. The great stone that had once been rolled back to open it was now firmly closed. What? She couldn't believe it. Without warning, she felt a hand touch her shoulder. Startled, she jumped back from where she sat. It was Kayla. "Don't do that. You scared the fuck out of me." "Relax," said Kayla. "We need you on the register. It's my lunch break." Sorry. "You okay? You're all pale." No, I'm okay. Just let me finish here." "Fine, but please hurry." Kayla walked away. As Charlotte finished clearing the table, she looked up and out the window. Clouds had cleared. The sun was burning in the sky. She saw a mother and a young boy passing by. The boy looked up at her. His eyes were like 2 obsidian marbles, narrowed. They were all pit and no iris. They seemed to suck her into a bad place. Charlotte shuddered and looked away. Her body seemed to shake violently from the effect of his eyes, and worse of all, the mask of his smile. It made Charlotte feel uneasy when he smiled. Charlotte didn't want to smile. Okay, that's it.
Well, good stuff. I love the voice, the poetry, like what you're doing there with the rummage sale, all those details, how you're talking about the patina and how there's this, everything's just in sunlight and it's like undesirable. And then this urn comes up out of nowhere and it's just the symbolism is pretty clear. I mean, I love how mysterious it is too, but because it wraps around mystery. I mean, the concept of faces being masks and the intentionality of a smile. What is that intention? You know, smiles are, there are happy smiles, there are sneers, there are all different kinds of smiles, all different types of faces and eyes. And it's just like this story is sort of like a showcase of that. that indiscernible quality, that the artificial nature of that, that every face could be a mask. You don't really know what people are thinking. um Tom, what did you think of that read, man?
Very, very nice voice. It's a good, lots of, like I said, good imagery. Um, Carried me along. I was riveted. I wanted to know what happened to her. I mean, a quick question: is that story finished? It kind of just seems to be abrupt at the end.
Yeah, that's interesting you ask. I had an earlier draft that I showed to Ricky, and he said um, it's good. The story idea is good, but we need more tactile, sticky kind of stenchiness to it. More to and play up the tension and the eeriness. And the reason I didn't do that because it was intended originally to be flash fiction. So it was meant to be under 5 pages. So the
Right.
original draft was something closer to 9 pages. I cut out a lot of content and just deleted it. So I had to rewrite that after Ricky gave me his notes, which I want to say for anyone who is coming in and they're a novice at writing fiction like I am, you need to contact Ricky because he gave me the best literary critique I've ever received last night. And I was just so excited by the
Mm.
notes he gave me that I jumped right into writing it before I went to bed last night. So yeah, it could be longer, but I wanted to. I suppose it could be longer. What I want to create this balance of the sort of like, I want the reader to fill in a few of the blanks themselves, and I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want readers to figure it out too soon. The man was trying to sell that urn so he wouldn't die, because that's the concept. That yeah, whomever is in possession of the urn, that means that they have roughly maybe 40 years of life then left. And he
Mm.
didn't want to die, so he was trying to pass it off on this poor unsuspecting girl. So maybe I could get in there and tinker with that a little bit so it's
Yeah,
not as
that's
mysterious.
true.
I tried early on, I tried to point out what you think about buying it off his aunt to suggest that there was some kind of magical connection between purchasing the urn and uh, it having, the effect of, well,
Or
so.
perhaps there's two urns, one with the open
Oh,
crypt and one with the closed crypts.
wow. Yeah, it's funny because Ricky mentioned that in the first draft, that he thought it was two urns, but it's always just
uh
been
what
one marble urn.
well what I said was that it was possible that on one side of the urn the tomb was open, and then if you flipped it around on the other side,
Oh,
the tomb was closed. But
yeah.
it's a similar topic. Tom, you'll remember back when you were dialing in Emily Breck when you were doing the
Right,
final version. I said, "Well, there's an ending." I said, but it wasn't finished. Remember when I said that?
right,
Yeah, I
right.
said the same. I said the same thing to David about this story, and this ending is better, I think, than the last draft. David's, you understand, David's a poet. So his whole
Mm.
thing is poetry. So stepping into prose like this, it's uncharted waters. And I think he's
But
doing really good, you know?
but the um, this is not an insult. This is actually a compliment. You write your prose like a poet, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It's got a
Yeah.
flow like a poem does. You
Yeah,
know.
I love his poetic voice, Tom. I do, you know?
See,
No, that's
now what I
really
would do at
kind
the
of you.
end, it was either have her stare at the little boy with the black eyes,
Hmm.
and then I would just have her leave the restaurant and leave it open as to why has she left the restaurant. She just puts her
Hmm.
things down and leaves. She walks out the door.
That's interesting.
You know,
What kind of effect do you think that'll create if I do something like that?
more mystery, more.
Oh,
Is she going out
right.
to join the boy? Is she gonna follow the little boy? Is she has has she found an answer in the eyes, the smile? Has she, you know,
I
because,
kind of wanted to create this situation where you have a character that is just completely paranoid, almost like
hmm,
every time she sees someone smiling, like if it's one of her customers, or if it's a neighbor, or if it's a news reporter on television that's reporting some, earthquake or a flood, and they're smiling while they're talking, because I like this concept of how people can lie with their smile to people.
mm-hmm,
And
Yeah.
if you want to know if someone is sincere and when they're smiling, you look at the eyes. You don't look at the mouth. It's in the eyes, because
right,
they have to be smiling with their eyes too. The two go together. Like, try
right.
to smile without your eyes. Like, look into a mirror. It's not possible.
See, that's a very good point. There's a morning TV show. I won't insult the person, but they've been around a long time. But you, she has no sincerity whatsoever. And when she smiles, it, most people look at the smile and they see. I look at her eyes and say, yeah, she's got. There's nothing behind. There's a dead fish behind that smile.
Yeah, there's
She
like a
doesn't mean that
vacuum.
she's just doing it
Yeah,
for the paycheck, or I mean, it's awful.
yeah.
Um,
and
No, I
and it
believe that.
and it could be in the case of the story, it could be that she's also paranoid, or there's perhaps something wrong with her. Maybe she's not with it 100%. The whole thing is sufficiently mysterious where you're not exactly sure what's going on, and I like that. I'm a mystery. I like to have a mystery. I don't like everything spelled out plainly. Like the way Tom suggests to end it, where she just walks out, it's just as mysterious, but it's like it offers you like a direction for the mystery to go in. It's almost like a prompt. Um, but either way, it's
yeah,
a great effort, David. It's a great effort. Thank you for reading it.
Well, thank you for letting me read it.
yeah.
Yep,
For
yep,
someone who says that they don't write fiction, you do a really good job.
Well,
yeah.
I'm the very rare sort of poet. I believe that fiction is as great an art form as poetry. So, I
Can be.
that's why I try to do my best.
Well, bravo.
If this is a good
Uh,
example, you could go very far with your fiction. If this is a an example of a first try, let's say, or
Agreed.
Yeah, well,
Agreed.
thank you.
Right on, man. Keep up the good work. Uh, so
very
Tom,
enjoyable.
yeah, I enjoyed it. Tom, how about you, man? What's going on with you? What do you have to read? You're going to pick up on Shirella?
We're going to jump back into the Night of the Inferno, where
Mm-hmm.
O'Hara is getting his feel for the where he is and where his place could be in this world. So we have here.
Right on.
All right. Let's see here. Move this over. Okay. So O'Hara is still fresh from the outer end, Miyahab. He may not have. He may have kept more wit than most strangers do. That was Shirella speaking. You might be right. Miyahab took a long sip and turned to O'Hara. Well then, get comfortable. Your questions may take some time. More than either of you should take away from your sleep. We will stop when either of you gets tired. And what of you, sir? O'Hara asked the mage. I sleep a little. 5 or 6 hours is all I need. Too much to do. Also, do not call me sir. Most call me father or mage, although a few are bold enough to call me Miyahab. He glanced at Shirella and then back at O'Hara. Any of those will suffice for you. Thank you, Miyahab. Bold. I like that. Now, we were discussing shards and mages. A mage may rise to 10th rank or master mage. At one point, many generations past, only shard mages possessed shards. That was before the time of Kyloris. We will not discuss him here. In part because of his meddlings, the shards are now no longer given to shard mages. They are now distributed at random among the people of Arema. That has resulted in much chaos. I've heard stories of other shard owners who were not people, said Shirella. As have I, said Miyahab. I have found no mention or hint of any such in any of the lore master libraries. It's a fable, no more. To continue, the shards still hold their influence, but are now in the hands of non-mages, generally. It reduces the application of such influence a great deal. Some have a natural ability to tap into the shard, as Shirella does. With training and discipline she has gotten from myself and others, she now commands as much influence as an 8th order shard mage. Could you become a shard mage? He asked Shirella. Before she could open her mouth, Miyahab spoke. She could have. The option was only open for her at an early age. Mages are born, not made. She would have had to receive a call from deep within her before her 7th year of age. The choice is not hers any longer. I see. Tell me of this influence that shards have. Is it sizable? Often, yes. Shards grant their owners a slight influence over a certain physical sphere, such as fire, rain, light, even time. This influence is different for each shard. For instance, Siri influences life force. The possessor of Siri can cause any animal to gain or lose life energy. Very handy when one is attacked by a tiger, for instance, or a man. Any animal. A wounded comrade could have his healing ability sped up, assuring survival. An attacking tiger would most likely fall asleep. Are tigers special to Siri? No, but to Eitan they are. Siri has a binding to Islaki tortoises because of their longevity. What animal is bound to Hako? Miyahab frowned. You know, I should have expected that question. Give me a moment. He reached into the deep folds of his robes, his hand searching without hurry. With a smile, he found his quarry. The hand withdrew and a small leather-bound volume sat in his hand. He rubbed his right thumb over the tiny lock. The book popped open with a tiny flash of green light. I've always hated the lock on this tome, he said. Miyahab, you always say that, said Shirella. Yes, you could have never taken the time, and yet you've never taken the time to replace it. I know. It's this binding. I like it. Pure gem dragon skin. Makes this thing just about indestructible. Anyway, let me turn to my shard lists. He turned some pages and frowned. I must fill in these columns one day. It's hard to come by the information. Some shards change hands often. It's in their nature. Ah, here we are. Hako is bound to sea eagles. Such beautiful creatures. You are lucky. Idar, for example, is bound to ice bears. Very nasty, hard to train. They make terrible house pets. Let me guess, O'Hara. Urmal is bound to dragons. Yes, said Miyahab. Lucky me, said Shirella. I have to be very careful, or every dragon I encounter will follow me home. Still, it keeps some of the nastier ones away. Where did Gwyd come from? He was a gift from Kirlal, temple mage of the Tariel Temple in Tanoth. Their temple city, Enderal, needed some help after a storm destroyed half the place. Kirlal gifted me a dragon's egg when he found out that I owned Urmal. That was nice of them, said O'Hara. They took me by surprise, which is not like me. How did they do that? I did not know they were watching me the moment I came into town. After the cleanup, they followed me, and I knew it. I went into an inn and out the back, and then went to my room. Did that work? Nope. They knocked on my door the moment after I went in. An hour later, I owned the biggest puppy dog in the world. Both Miyahab and O'Hara laughed. Come on now, he can't be that bad, said O'Hara. Wait till he wants to play, said Miyahab, shaking his head. Are we done with the animal stories? This young man is eager to learn. Now where were we? Shards, said Shirella. Don't be disrespectful, young lady. God's shards are a source of power, influence, and even respect and fear. Once again, it depends on its owner and their experience with their shard. In your case, O'Hara, with your inexperience, I suspect that I could take Hako from you this instant. Be thankful it's not possible to do so. Why? You are bound to Hako for life. Ah, so if you killed me, you could take the shard, right? I'm afraid not. No, in that unfortunate circumstance, the shard would pass into the hands of the gods and given out again. That is how it always has been, how it will always be. He held up an amulet and moved it in a small circle from left to right. Tell me about Hako, asked O'Hara, intrigued by the ritual. It is the shard of Pradara, goddess of the four winds. She moves and sees through sea eagles. Really, said O'Hara, smiling. Are you fond of sea eagles? Asked the mage. I don't know. The idea made me excited. Miyahab made a mental note of the remark and continued. Her temples and grand halls are in the foothills of mountain ranges. Her disposition is moral, and she is a sun goddess. In all matters here and in every corner of Verema. As for worship or service, she is not very demanding, unless you hold her shard. Am I to understand that I stand out because I got lucky? What's my duty to her? Asked O'Hara. Do I have to sacrifice any animals to her or dance naked in the full sun? You had better watch what you say, O'Hara, said Miyahab. The gods will not be mocked. Only certain moon deities demand sacrifices, and then only on holy days. Zala and Iamorek are the worst. You would be wise to avoid their mages and their followers. I will, said O'Hara. What else? Your calling will be to visit a Pradara temple as soon as you are able. Learn as much as you can from the high priest there. Find out the Pradaran beliefs and practice as many of them as you feel comfortable with. Help fellow Pradarans whenever they need it. Take a sea eagle as a pet, much like Shirella has done with her dragon. That seems simple enough, said O'Hara. Live as good a life as you can. Do good deeds. Try to be a better person today than you were yesterday. Get to know some Pradaran mages. Do these things, and your life will be fulfilling. I suppose that I can do that. How do I live? I assume that I am too old to begin a shard mage apprenticeship. You are. But don't despair, said the mage. Shirella filled his mug again with ice-cold water. There was a lot to learn. Besides that, what Pradara asks of you. Ask many questions. That will get you far. Yes, well, what can I do to be of service to the community? I imagine there is some sort of currency I need to earn my keep. Or is there a barter system? I could learn a trade of some sort. You could become a thief, said Shirella. That takes very little training. She smiled as Miyahab glared at her. Really? Asked O'Hara. I was a thief for many years before I came to Valtor. I wasn't very good at it. Don't listen to her, O'Hara, said Miyahab. You did take the treasure from Baker's helm, yes? Yes, I did. No one has ever stolen that treasure before you did, and no one has done it since. Since, I have the treasure chest in my bedroom. I'll get it for you if you like to see it. No need. You don't understand how that treasure works, Shirella. There is always a treasure in Baker's helm. It's a magical place where no one has lived, yet there is always human activity. It's a ware nexus, a concentration of enormous energy. Your shard and your being a half-stone elf are probably the reasons why you were able to leave with the treasure and your life. I always thought I had a slight advantage there, besides owning Ermal, said Shirella. She looked at O'Hara. Ermal draws its power from the wear lines, which are entalic lines of energy flowing through Verema like a spider's web. Tariel's temples and the grand halls are located at nexus points, where many lines cross. Her grand halls are located in Kiro Vashar, in the Mountain Kingdoms, and Brenwall, near the Sea of Storms. Perhaps you've been more of a lucky thief than you are a good one, suggested O'Hara. Only a good thief could have lived as long as she has, says Miyahab. Shirella was an exceptional thief, but all thieves, good and bad, soon find themselves at the wrong end of a sharp blade. You were most fortunate to arrive here when you did. Perhaps, she said. Miyahab looked at O'Hara. The newcomer's eyes were droopy. We'll continue this in the morning. Let's meet at the inn. They make a tasty egg and gridak sausage bowl. The inn was busy, as always, before the work of the day started for those sitting down to eat. Miyahab had reserved a table against the back wall, with a good view of the front window. Their food was hot, plentiful, and delicious. They had the egg, it should be gridak, and gridak bowl, slabs of dark bread with butter, and large mugs of hot tea with milk and honey. None of them spoke as they ate. This gave O'Hara time to enjoy his food and look around at all the people of various professions who came and went. There was no hurry, and Miyahab remained as curious about O'Hara as O'Hara was about Verema. O'Hara, I know you have many more questions. I can see it in your eyes, said the mage, sitting back with his unlit pipe. Are you going to smoke? He asked. No, I hate smoking. The pipe is relaxing. I used to chew on thistle stalks, but the thorns were too much to prune every time I pick a new one. I see, said O'Hara. I'd like to know why I'm here and how I came to be here. Starting with trivial concerns, I see. Mia Hobb sat up straight and put the pipe into his tunic pocket. That would take some time. The innkeeper will let us sit here as long as we want, unless you'd like to go somewhere else. I'm comfortable, said O'Hara. Good. To begin, you're a stranger, which means you are not born in Varema. We know this by your manner of speaking. You have a complete ignorance of our customs, gods, history, and people. O'Hara frowned. Okay, is this going to help me earn a living? Mia Hobb laughed. That's another trait that all strangers seem to have in common. You don't ever finish one topic before starting another one. Yes, we need to establish a trade for you. What do you recall of your trade before you dropped in on us? O'Hara closed his eyes for a moment. The memories were sparse and fleeting. They drained from his mind with each passing hour. There was one piece of my past that is still clear, he said. I was a metal worker of sorts. The belt I woke up with has the tools I worked with. Metalworking. Sounds like a blacksmith to me. Is Ankar still working? He seems to me I recall him getting battered by an angry mule not too long ago. Yes, that was years ago, Mia Hobb, said Shirella. He still works, but at a slower pace. Ah, perhaps he can use an apprentice. Does he have a son or two? Both killed serving in the army. Too bad. Well, O'Hara looks big and strong enough for the job. We could go make inquiries later today. The two of us can take a look around town. You might see something you like. I would appreciate that a great deal, Mia Hobb. You don't know how much. My pleasure. I am obligated to help anyone who owns a god shard. Anyone? Yes, anyone. That is the price one pays for worshipping in a neutral grand hall. It's a good thing I've not had to deal with anyone influenced by moon shards. He performed his ritual with his amulet once more. He savored the moment, eyes closed. Where were we? Strangers being ignorant, said O'Hara. Yes, I knew that. Just testing you. Strangers exist in Varema to fill a need. Of course, much of this is guesswork and assumption. It does seem to fit with the known facts as such as they are. There are very few manuscripts and scrolls that exist from the deep past. To begin with, there's always been a bit of a population problem in Varema as a whole. Too many people, too few. A quick history of Varema, then. Long ago, a great darkness fell upon Varema. Then a great fire burned every bush and tree to the ground and dried up all the lakes. Clouds enveloped the globe, and a thick sheet of ice covered the ground. Most of the people and animals perished. There was a danger that all life would become extinguished. The lore masters call this the time of the Great Inferno, a time of great cataclysm and uncounted dead. I think we can stop there. So,
well, another really good installment of Varema and Shirella. I love your take on high fantasy, swords and sorcery, man. It's just an irresistible draw to keep. Like, I want to hear more. Like, it's nicely done. The voice is great, somewhat poetic, but the dialogue, as a narrative driver, the dialogue is just, as always, it's fantastic. The way you have these conversations and this banter, and the world building you're doing by having this guy, because it's Fortology. I have a lot of respect for planescaping storylines from some other space. People look at time travel stories, it's like, well, from some other time, but it's just as impressive to do some other space, like from one world to another. In the case of in the Silmarillion, there are elves that go back and forth from Valinor, and they come to Middle Earth, and it's like it's a dimensional intrusion. You're doing something very similar here, but you're having an Earthling, a stranger from Earth, and his tutorial is like you're using it as a great vehicle for world building, and you're doing it through the dialogue. So the expo is like subtle. But it's just irresistible. I mean, your characters are very, very bright. Um, I think it's really great. David, what did you think of that read?
I enjoyed it immensely. The thing that I enjoyed most about it was that it really just took me out of my mind, and that's what great fantasy should do. Just
Mhm.
Yeah,
close out the world around me. He built. He was filling us in with all of these details and all the stuff that we would need that we would get from our eyesight or our smell, and the dialogue was snappy and smooth, and it's the kind of dialogue that makes the reader think, I would like to sit and have breakfast with these people and talk. So the dialogue was excellent, and it was thoroughly enjoyable. I would love to read it when it's completed.
I'll make sure you do.
Tom, comment.
Hmm.
When will it be completed?
Boy,
That's I don't like the sound of that wind.
there's a lot. I mean, I have so many projects.
Because
What
I
I'd
love
like to do,
Shirella, man.
yeah, what I would love to do is finish my Florida novel. Um, Maybe finish The Bride, and then I would dive into the War of the God Shards, which is the overall title of this, all 12 to 15 books it will be. Um, you know,
And
so
how many do you have first drafted now?
let's say if there's 15 books, I think I have 12, maybe 13 of them done in first draft. A
That's
lot
ex
happened. A lot.
Yeah, that's so good, man.
I mean, I think I developed this pantsing thing where I just sit down and write from creating uh, this world of Shirella. This story is I was writing everywhere. We were on vacation. I would have my volume with me. I would write, and you know, we'd everybody sitting down watching TV. I'd be sitting down there with my, and I'd be scribbling. And I was doing 8, 10, 12 pages a day for years and years.
Beautiful. That's
Right?
beautiful.
Because it was just
Yeah.
pouring out of my head. And I used to
Yes,
work.
sir.
I used to work at my sister-in-law used to be a banquet manager at this big banquet hall. And right after I met my wife, I got volunteered to help in the coat room on
Hmm.
Fridays and Saturdays, and in the cold weather. And I would come in about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, everything would start, and about 4 o'clock the weddings were in, and I had till midnight before anybody. So I had 7, 8, 9 hours to do nothing, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, and
Beautiful.
that's great times. So
Well,
I did substitute teaching, and I wrote during my lunch hour. People, instead of making, I know I probably should have made friends or talked, but I was so intent on getting these characters and these situations and these, uh, done that I just had to write. So anyway,
great creativity is a good friend. Um, and you're definitely have a long-standing relationship with creativity. I'm looking forward. I'm glad to hear that you're finally going to do Shirella and go through all the rewrites because it's so
oh,
important. Like, I'm a big fan of your writing, Tom, but Shirella is my favorite thing, even above
hmm,
Emily and everything. But I love Emily. Don't get me wrong. I'm not de-emphasizing her, but I love a good fantasy story, man. And you got that, you know. Um,
yeah.
well, this has been a great show. Time flies when you're having fun. We did a little bit of a longer read today, but I enjoyed the heck out of it and we learned some stuff. We were breaking things down just like the story autopsy is meant to do, right, folks? Um, please head over to joeswritersclub.com. Check out our blogs and our author pages and stuff. And head on over to joeswriters.club and sign up for our forums. Check out our stuff, our Facebook, all our social media. Head to our YouTube channel, please. Like and subscribe. And come join us on Tuesdays for our meeting We're talking about migrating over to Discord. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We're working on it. Tom, you have anything to plug today?
Yes, I have 2 short story collections on Amazon. Available on ebook, paperback, and hardcover. First one is called Dwellers in the Shadows. Creepy little stories. And the second one is It Still Out There? Even more creepy stories. The subtitle of that one is Stories to Keep You Up at Night. So, and I blast writing them. And so they're lots of fun. I've got some good reviews. And check them out, please.
Yes, folks. Tom Tiernan. Head over to Amazon.com. Check out his short story collections. He's great with short stories, folks. It's worth every penny. I'm selling Babbletron. It's a dystopian cyberpunk novella. Babbletron After the Fire. Richard Andrew Olkus, Amazon.com. Go check it out. It's action packed, as they say.
I'll say.
Yeah, well, you read it. Yeah, you would know. David, have you anything to sell, sir?
Mondays we have a poetry live stream that I highly recommend. We are contrasting and comparing poetics and fiction and in poetry, and we're doing all Halloween themes this month. And last week we did Shirley Jackson and the Raven. Shirley Jackson's the witch, and Poe's the Raven. And we're doing H.P. Lovecraft on Monday, and I'm not sure about the poet yet, but please come. It's Ricky does a really cool job, and it's a lot of fun to talk about the relationships between poetry and prose, because there's more there than people realize.
Well
They're
done.
they're like part of a family.
Yeah, well done, David. Thank you for plugging that. That was good. So that's on Mondays. It's 7 to 8 Eastern time, Eastern United States time zone. That's Sublimated Poesy with Ricky and David. And this has been JWC Story Autopsy with Ricky and Tom. We have a great time making these shows and bringing them to you. We hope you enjoy them as much as we enjoy creating them. And creativity is at the center of it. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone, for listening. Take care. We'll see you all soon. All right.
Be seeing you.
Oh, thanks.